Welcome on back to another episode of the Goonery. Myself, the innkeeper, here alongside Brandon, aka Beans, and it's grave dancing season for Brandon here today. And I mean, to be honest, I think most people saw it coming. We called it Goonery when the Jaguars hired him, and it just turned into some all-time Goonery down in Jacksonville with the firing of Urban Meyer.
This season has been an absolute dumpster fire for the Jaguars, but it took for a kicker who's no longer on the team to expose Urban Meyer for kicking him. And it wasn't during a regular season game. This is during a preseason game where the games really don't count. So that makes it even more egregious. But you want to talk about a colossal failure for the Jaguars to think that a guy that truthfully he's an awesome college coach. He knows X's and O's. He's won championships everywhere he's been. He's an excellent coach. But Pat McAfee, I believe he said it early in the year.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, I don't know if his formula is going to work in the NFL. It's not his scheme. It's not how he it's not about, how he approaches the game of football, but it's mostly about, his track record. You cannot win scandal and get yourself out and be successful in the NFL. So if there was ever a situation where an NFL team would give him a look, I think they'll think twice, because it was literally from the jump when they hired him that stuff kept coming out. So, I don't know if this relatively ends his career in terms of coaching in general, but it gets to a point where how many times is a team going to give him a chance until he realizes that no one should have given him a chance in the first place? And it's just a laundry list of things that has gone on throughout his tenure at Florida, Ohio State, and now Jacksonville. How many times are we're going to give him passes for being just a coach that wins? It can't be that all the time. He's obviously not a leader of men. He's obviously not a guy that I would want to send my kid to play for. And even in the NFL, you can't even treat grown men with respect. And, and this is pertaining to the whole thing with him calling his coaching staff losers, which is, by the way, the same coaches that you picked. So, it's obviously a reflection of you, but it seems like that accountability is not something that's a strong suit. And you even saw it in the press conference after the game against the Titans. It's saying that, whoever leaked this stuff is going to get fired. Well, you should probably address the things and just address you instead of the person who's leaking them out. Someone obviously wants you fired, but you could just speak for yourself and not for other people. So colossal failure. And truthfully, I'm glad that the Jaguars are learning this lesson, because Urban Meyer should have never had that coaching job in the first place. And this serves as a lesson for anybody who wants to interview Urban Meyer going forward for their coaching position, and see how long that little experiment's going to last you, because it's not going to last you very long.
Yeah, and I think that I just think objectively looking at it from 5,000 feet above, everyone saw it coming that Urban Meyer was not going to succeed in the NFL. He struggled when he is in a position where he does not feel like he's in control. And when you are making less money than the athletes on your team, he knows he's not in control. He knows the players run the show in the NFL, quite frankly. I would say there's maybe a handful of coaches in the NFL who truly have a lock on their guys. And that's Belichick, that's Andy Reid. I'm going to throw Mike Tomlin in that class. And Pete Carroll, maybe. I don't know. I don't even know if maybe Bruce Arians.
Bruce, that was going to be the guy I was going to pick.
Yeah. And Urban Meyer's just not that guy. He's got scandals every single place he's gone. Just this year alone, the Lambeau thing, which happened in the preseason, everyone thought the Jaguars hiring him was ridiculous, because you could have had most likely any coach you wanted, bringing in Trevor Lawrence, who's supposed to be a generational quarterback, who quite frankly has looked like, I would say, the fourth best out of the 4 first-round quarterbacks this year. And the refusal to run James Robinson, drafting Travis Etienne in the first round when you have James Robinson, and then the Jaguars coming out and bashing, or not the Jaguars, Urban Meyer coming out bashing, saying that he didn't want him there. He wanted a receiver. He wanted, what's his name? Tony on the
Kadarius Toney,
yes, on the Giants. He then goes and gets a lap dance and finger blasts a girl at the bar in Columbus when he didn't fly back with the team. I mean, it goes on and on and on. And it just, I don't know what to expect. I'm sure what's going to happen is Urban's going to say he regrets his actions, even though the Jaguars said he needed to mature and show that he was remorseful for his actions, which he obviously wasn't. This is just a week after the Jaguars saying they're committed to Urban in the future, too. It's incredibly impressive to have an NFL team quit on you in the first year of a 5-year deal.
And it's amazing that they're waiting for a grown ass man to mature. That's what gets me. And I think it's one of those hires where I'm not going to compare it fully to Joe Judge and the Giants because I've had my trepidations about the hire about Joe Judge, and I think the Giants are holding on to that because they wanted to make everyone look at the Giants and be like, oh wow, they're smarter than everybody else. They got a guy that no one interviewed, but we was the only team that interviewed him, and we're gonna make sure that our investment works out. That was the Jaguars at first until they found out that it was kind of he was abusing players essentially. So that's one thing. So, but I did see a tweet earlier, and it said the Jaguars may have gotten rid of Urban, but they didn't get rid of the real problem in that organization. And you look at it from a team that was in the AFC Championship game battling with Tom Brady and the Patriots to the very end, then every year it got progressively worse. You bring in Tom Coughlin, who did not connect with the players at that time, and there was a reason why the Giants got rid of him and they forced him to retire, and it was that exact reason. He couldn't connect with players anymore, but they brought him in because of some type of relatability factor, I guess. I don't know. But now we're starting to see that this organization just makes bad decisions within each other. It's not a personnel issue. The Jaguars don't have a bad team on paper, but when you talk about the execution of getting the right guys in place, that has been the issue. So you may want to look up top when you want to look at how the Jaguars organization has been for the past couple of years. It's all been organization. It's not personnel. It's been organizational. And I don't know when they're going to get it right, but it starts in January. What are they going to do about head coach? Are they going to replace their GM? What is going to happen with this team? Because right now, you have to be in damage control to protect your number one overall pick. This is the most important factor here. The head coach is just as important, but getting the guy that's going to help Trevor Lawrence take that next step has got to be priority number one. And if they fail at that, Trevor Lawrence is going to be a career backup, or he's going to end up like Mitch Trubisky.
Yeah.
And I don't think anyone wants to see that.
No. And I was watching NFL Live today on ESPN. I just threw it on for a few minutes this afternoon. Dan Orlovsky kind of hit the nail on the head. Trevor Lawrence came from a situation at Clemson where he had the keys to the kingdom. Everyone was behind him. The machine was behind him, trying to make sure he succeeded and did what he could to develop. While with the Jaguars, all eyes were on Urban Meyer. And that is absolutely asinine when you consider the fact that Trevor Lawrence has been considered probably the best quarterback prospect since Andrew Luck. I think it's at one point that was tossed around. And the Jaguars need to make a splash with this hiring. I don't know what that splash is. I don't know if you try and pry away a head coach from a different team looking for another challenge. I don't know if this is potentially, call me crazy. Dan Orlovsky also kind of floated this out, and I kind of heard the idea, and my spidey senses went off a little bit. Prying away Sean Payton from New Orleans.
The only issue right now for the Jaguars is you're a head coach, and you have seen the organizational failures over the past couple of years. And if you try to pry away a veteran guy who's won a Super Bowl, who has had tons of success for the Saints, that's a tough ask. So I think their best option is to go with a guy that is young and wants a head coaching job. Because remember, with a lot of these young guys, the main goal is to be a head coach. Mm-hmm. So at the end of the day, even if it's a horrible situation in terms of the organization from the top, they're going to try to take on that challenge to help themselves. When you're a guy at the end of the road and you've done a lot at your first stop, second stop, third stop, wherever it may be, I don't know if you want to go back to a situation where it's like, I gotta deal with the other stuff with the organization. So if they're gonna prioritize Sean Payton, I mean, maybe, but it'll be tough. And just thinking about the teams that's going to need coaches like the Bears, not the Giants or the Jaguars. Those are the two that you look at, and they're not in the same boat, but they have similarities to where they are in their situations. Or bad organization, young quarterback, and a challenge to build around them. And I'm not sure if a veteran coach is going to want to do that. And I honestly would not blame them.
And as we kind of talked through that a little bit, I think I mean, I don't know how I missed this obvious one. Aaron Leftwich to Jacksonville.
It sounds right, but I don't want it to happen because I want.
Oh, I'm aware. I'm right there with you. I am right there with you. But I think this is going to be the year too where McDaniels kind of walks away from Belichick as well, even though he has Mac Jones there. I just think that the potential to have someone like Justin Fields, like Trevor Lawrence in comparison to Mac Jones, not that Mac Jones is the front runner for rookie of the year. I'm not slandering Mac Jones, but I think McDaniels is just looking for a more dynamic quarterback. And I think that I don't want McDaniels in Chicago. I mean, I think he's a train wreck and a ticking time bomb, just like every other Belichick coaching tree member.
Yeah.
But that's also why I can see him ending up in Jacksonville.
The only reason why I don't see McDaniels leaving, I think a lot of it is he still wants to be a part of a Belichick type of thing where he kind of sticks it to Brady to win a championship. And
yeah,
he has the right guy in place, the right guy quarterback to make that happen. So I do think that eventually it'll lead to McDaniels taking over the Patriots whenever Belichick decides he just doesn't want to do it anymore. But I do think that he's having a lot of fun developing Mac Jones, and you can tell with their record right now. So I personally can't see McDaniels walking away, but it's always going to float around. It's going to be like this every single year, and I personally just can't see it.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I mean, we could talk about this all day, potential hires, but something we have to consider too. Urban Meyer is he going to be in the boot somewhere next year, back on the sidelines with Brady Quinn and Reggie Bush, or is he going to be in the college ranks again? I think he takes a year off to spend time with family because he loves his wife so much, and then he'll be back on the sidelines somewhere.
And that would be a disaster. And literally, if Fox brings it back with open arms, I don't know at this point. I don't know. And it's not about him being bad on TV. He's not bad on TV.
No, he wasn't. He wasn't. Objectively, he was not bad.
He was not bad. But at the same time, what message is it sending to keep allowing this man to have jobs when every single place he has been, it's always been something following him? And it doesn't have to be football. It could be anywhere. And at this point, we just have to stop giving him slaps on the wrist because he does not deserve it.
Mm-hmm. No, you're right. You're right. I don't even know what job he would take over at the college ranks at this point because
Texas.
You think they would fire Sark already?
If they fail with Quinn Ewers at quarterback, Sark is gone. And it may get to a point where if they're hovering around 500 and around the mid-season mark, he's gone. He is gone because you cannot fail. That Quinn Ewers, I mean, the way we talked about Trevor Lawrence in college when he was in Clemson, we're going to start talking about him like this. So if he fails with him, that is a colossal failure. And they're going to try to bring in the best guy possible. And truthfully, I'm not sure who's going to leave next year. I can't forecast that because after what we've seen over the past month, you can't predict a damn thing with the college ranks and their coaches. So we just have to wait and see. But if anywhere, I think it'll be Texas.
Okay. Yeah. So I mean, we're on the topic of it. Let's just get into college football. You're talking about the craziness of college football and coaches being able to go wherever they want nowadays. I'm going to switch this around a little bit. What we originally talked about, the order we were going to do. Just National Signing Day was yesterday. So Yeah, Wednesday was yesterday. Yeah, Wednesday, and Coach Prime Deion Sanders down at Jackson State was able to, with presumably, I'm not sure, presumably a massive national name, image, likeness deal for the number one recruit in the country to come play at Jackson State over Florida State. And I think that is the coolest thing ever, just that's going to come out of this NIL deal. You have players playing wherever they want. It's creating a level playing field. And people said that the NIL was going to kind of favor the big schools, your Bamas, Georgias, Texas, USC's, Notre Dame's. It said it was going to favor them. You have Jackson State, who has an $8 million yearly athletic budget, coming in and signing a five-star recruit, the number one or two player in the country, depending on where you look, a cornerback and a receiver or a running back. He's going to play both ways in college, and he's going to be coached by the greatest cornerback of all time. It's incredible. It's absolutely incredible.
So I'm glad you brought that point up because I was one of those people at first. Granted, it didn't stop me from thinking the way I think now in terms of why I think it should have still been in play. But Jackson State pulling this off is a game changer. And I don't like this idea that the NIL was the only reason why this was a thing. Guys, I have a secret for y'all. I don't know if y'all noticed or not, but regardless if a guy is not, very experienced with coaching, sometimes names get you players in college. I don't know if people know that, but Deion Sanders, it's not like he's running a scrub organization in Jackson State. I believe they're in one of the championship games. The name escapes me, but they're in one of the championship games right now. So I didn't know that it was going to happen this early with Jackson State getting a top recruit. But if you told me in 2021 that they were going to get the number one cornerback in the recruiting class, I would have called you crazy because I didn't think it was going to happen this soon. But this is what happens when you bring a culture of guys that buy in to a guy that is old school but can relate to a new school guy, because these new school guys, they're very flashy, can be flamboyant with their style and how they play football. Deion was every bit of that. So Deion sees himself in the plays that he's coaching. That's extremely important because you have a lot of guys that get coached by these guys who will probably tell you respect the game and don't celebrate and all this other stuff. And that's where the disconnect comes in. And that's why you probably see a lot of these guys are transferring, because it's not seeing eye to eye. And they kind of realize that I don't need to deal with this when I can get paid and go somewhere else where I'm actually wanted and I'm actually getting coached up the right way. So right now, college is in a great spot. And if the only reason why you disagree with this is because they have freedom to do what they want, that tells me that you want these players to basically be slaves, have play for free labor, play to, like, I think we had this conversation about probably a year ago. You play, and then you get injured, and then what? You have nothing to fall back on. The league's not going to want to draft you. You're probably get drafted late. You're probably going to enter practice squad and all this other stuff. This is great security for the players. And I think that's why it bothers people, because it's not going to deter players from actually wanting to play. It's actually going to give them an incentive to play. And that's the most important thing here.
Yeah, and I think too, Deion, he brought in, I believe it was 4, 5, 6, something like that, FBS transfers as well yesterday. He brought in guys from Indiana, FIU, one of the Louisiana schools. No flashy FBS programs by any means, but you're still bringing in FBS talent to come play at the FCS level willingly. And I went to high school with a few kids who are playing Division One football right now at the FBS level. And a friend of mine who plays, an offensive lineman at Indiana, has said that there's more people on the fence at IU thinking about transferring down to Jackson State right now than just the two who've already committed. So I think too, what's helping with the NIL now too is the lack of players having to sit out a year transferring.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say that Deion's trying to just show larger programs what he can do at Jackson State and what he could do with his name to recruit. But that thought kind of has cropped into my mind, where is Deion kind of showing how good of a recruiter he can be at a school like Jackson State just to leverage it for a larger FBS Power 5 job next year and then just bring all these recruits with him. I don't think that's what he's doing at the moment, but the thought is in the back of my head.
I always thought that the main goal of Deion taking his job was to leave an impact of some sort.
Mhm,
And this could segue to a lot of guys that we grew up watching potentially taking over college jobs
mhm.
in the SWAC conference, and not just FCS, but more so in the SWAC conference.
Yeah.
So I think what he's doing is great, and I think it would honestly be a sad day whenever Deion does leave Jackson State, because these things happen. It's inevitable. It's not something I want to think about, but it's going to happen. But
Yeah.
I think the most important thing is Deion is setting a culture right now for retired players that potentially want to get into coaching. That if your name is big, players are going to want to play for you. You just have to market yourself as a guy that wants to teach kids, and that's the most important thing. Deion has done that, and right now he is making the biggest impact in college than more than anybody I can remember in the past 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, and I don't even think that's a crazy statement to say either. And I think another cool aspect of it is the fact that, Deion's son is the quarterback at Jackson State.
Mhm.
He was the freshman of the year in the conference. He was all conference. And he just looks like he's having fun there. His players look like
Yeah,
they're having fun there. They set attendance records. I think their average attendance was like 50,000 at home games this year, which is
yeah.
larger than some SEC schools. So I mean, Deion is for sure, I mean, risen the Jackson State program, I guess you could say, because I mean, I think that's where Walter Payton went, I believe, right? Was
I
Jackson
think so. I
State?
think so.
Yeah. So I mean, they're a historically relevant program. They have more. I looked into this a little bit. People saying that there's no prestige in going and playing at Jackson State. And I saw someone wearing had an Ole Miss logo in their replies on Twitter, and someone goes, "Buddy, I hate to break it to you, Jackson State's last three NFL Hall of Famers are in more recently than Ole Miss alums," and I mean it's telling. I mean, it's a historic program if you, at the end of the day, if you look at it, and the trajectory they're on right now, they're playing in a nationally televised bowl game, and I don't know, other than Notre Dame this year, I don't think FSU is on a nationally televised game.
You know, I had a conversation with somebody on Twitter I think a month or two back. There is such elitism in college football to where you see stuff like this happen and people are upset about it. I'm sorry if you want to see Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, and Oklahoma in the college football playoff every single season and stuff like that. I'm sorry that is the case. But if you care about the sport of football, college football, one of the most historically corrupt organizations, you will root this on and you won't crap on it because this is awesome. But truthfully, the real truth about football fans is that they don't give a crap about these players' livelihoods. They care about what they can do to make them happy. So it's unfortunate, but guess what? They're gonna have to deal with it, and we're gonna see who are the real football fans. Who
Mhm.
really cares about what these kids do in their decision making going forward.
Yeah, and just my favorite thing that you're seeing with the NIL and players allowing to transfer wherever they like, it's parity. We saw it this year. We
Absolutely.
said it. We said it a few weeks back, and we're going to get into it. Let's just get into it now. Just with the playoff. I mean, there is more parity in college football this year than ever, in my opinion, at least. I mean, yes, you still have Georgia and Alabama who have historically been in. I think the majority of the playoffs that have occurred since college football playoff has been a thing, but you have Michigan, who's in the playoff for the first time, won their first Big Ten championship in God how many years, and then Cincinnati, the first Group of Five team to make the college football playoff. There's been a case for teams in the past, but just this year, you're seeing college football as a reset year on across the board completely. And it's awesome, in my opinion. It's absolutely incredible that we're going to see. It's not going to happen, I don't think at least. But Cincinnati has the chance to go play in a national championship. And you would have said that to people 5 years ago, no one would have believed you. Absolutely no one would have believed you. And I'll tell you, though, the game I'm looking forward to the most is Georgia, Michigan. I think that game is just going to be it's going to be a 12 round. It's going to be 12 rounds punching each other in the gut, in the face, trading shots. And I think it's going to be an incredible game.
It's a classic strength versus strength. The
Mhm.
defense is the strength of Georgia. They are as stout as ever, and then you have the offensive line and the running game for Michigan, which is their biggest strength. But obviously, that game is going to come down to the quarterback. Stetson Bennett, he had a game to forget against Alabama,
Yeah.
and that was the real like. I follow a couple of Georgia fans on Twitter, and I think they were very, very indifferent about him because even when JT Daniels' health was healthy, like start JT, because I don't think they were sure about Stetson.
Yeah, and here's the thing about Stetson Bennett that I will never understand. He's been fine. Like he's like that was his first bad game I think I've seen him have, and I've watched a good amount of Georgia games. How is a walk-on quarterback the starting quarterback for a team just full of 4 and 5 stars? I understand some talent falls through the cracks. I think Stetson's a JUCO transfer because he played JUCO for a year after transferring from Georgia originally.
Mm-hmm.
But it makes absolutely no sense to me. And JT Daniels is the better quarterback, like without a doubt, in my opinion. So that is, in my opinion, I would say Georgia has the weakest starting quarterback in the college football playoff.
I would say so. And because here's the thing. A lot of people will sit there and tell you K McNamara was just a passenger. It may be correct. Maybe. But you have to watch the games. Because if there's one thing about Cade, he's good for a big pass in every game he plays in. And you know, he has those head scratches. There was a time where he was throwing the balls at his own offensive lineman's helmet. He's had times where he's been inaccurate on throws that's going across the field and stuff like that. But if there's one thing about Cade, he is good for a big throw every single game. And I think one thing that we're so used to in college, we've been spoiled with a lot of good quarterbacks that just like to throw the damn ball out. So when you see a guy like Stetson, a guy like Cade McNamara, who's not going to make many mistakes, you're like, oh, this guy's freaking boring. We want to watch him. He's not good enough to win you a championship. But I do think that if you just make simple throw, it's everything has to be simplistic.
Mistake-free football is what wins in college. It's what wins in the NFL.
But people hate it. It's the craziest thing. They hate it.
Why do you think that Alex Smith was as successful as he was at the college and at the collegiate and NFL level? And why did he have such a lengthy career despite being average for so long? He did not make mistakes. And there's nothing wrong with not being flashy. I mean, look what this might not be a great example, but it's like the most recent one in my head. I hated him. And it's also because if I'm watching a college game that's not my team, I want it to be flashy.
Yeah.
Ian Book was not flashy by any stretch of the imagination, but he was good and he didn't make mistakes in Notre Dame. And look where Notre Dame went with him. And
he got drafted because of that.
Yeah. And I think that that's a fair comparison is Cade to Ian Book. They play that same style of football where they're okay on having a running attack, being the basis of the offense, and they'll throw the ball when you need them to, and they're not going to make mistakes.
Yep.
And the thing about Michigan football too, they capitalize on mistakes. Georgia's not going to make many of those mistakes, but I think Michigan's defense will be able to force Stetson Bennett to make those mistakes.
And I don't want to give the blueprint to Georgia of how to beat Michigan, but if you saw in the Iowa game, they took chances on blitzing McNamara, and it got him uncomfortable for a time before Michigan finally figured them out. So I do think that would be the key for Georgia, but the biggest key for Michigan, stay true to who you are. Listen, it's the playoff. This is the first time in a long time you're in a big game like this. But remember, this isn't a team that can't be beat. I do think that Michigan has a legitimate shot to win a national championship. I do think they could beat Alabama. I know for sure they could beat Cincinnati, and I do think they could beat Georgia. It's
Yeah.
just a matter of staying true to who they are. Because if you look at Michigan, that is not just they're not just a good football team; they're a confident football team. And if you maintain that confidence, they're going to be good. So part of that confidence is sticking true to who they are, running the football. And if you gotta make some pass plays and you got to do some trick plays, you do that. But just don't try to do too much. Just play your game. And I who knows? I think this game is the coin flip game because usually they have that in the college football
Yep.
playoff. Last year was Ohio State and Clemson. Then Ohio State pounced them. But you saw what Alabama and Notre Dame didn't have a chance. It's usually like that. So of course that's the game I'm looking forward to. I'm a Michigan fan, but I do think that's going to be the more competitive out of the two.
Yeah, and I just want to say I'm pulling for the Wolverines. PointsBet sportsbook they saw how badly I lost on Georgia and they credited me with a $50 free play
Lord.
for college football. I don't know if it was they said thanks for being a loyal customer. So I don't know if that means I have an issue or not, but they gave me a $50 free play, which I placed a three-leg parlay with moneyline Michigan to beat Georgia at plus 245. I moneylined Alabama 581, which is just whatever. And then Michigan outright winner national championship, $50 to win 1770. So I'm pulling for the Wolverines, not only for my
You got no
pocket, but
choice.
I would love to. I would love to see Harbaugh get a national championship, and just it's been an interesting couple of weeks for Michigan football. It really has. I mean, you've seen the national narrative kind of flip on Harbaugh for the first time, and honestly, since he's been hired, probably.
And it goes outside of this particular team. You go look at the national rankings for the recruiting,
Mm-hmm.
and of course, Ohio State's ahead of Michigan. It's going to take time for that to develop and the narrative to flip, but usually there'll be some distance between the two. Michigan, their recruiting class, especially at the cornerback position, they are going to have a absolute. I mean, it's going to be a no-fly zone in a couple of years. That's how good this recruiting class
Yeah.
is, and and that tells me that they're viewing Michigan differently now. And I think the main thing is the youth. What we talked about on the last podcast, the Mike McDonald's, the Mike Hart, the Josh Gaddis. Granted, those guys may not be there for all 4 years or 3 years. Those guys are going to play at Michigan. But the commitment to get young on the coaching staff to me is making the all the world difference. And it's beautiful to see. Even if we don't win a national championship this year, the window is open for the next 3 or 4 years to win that national championship. So it'll be beautiful to win this year, but just knowing that there is a light at the end of the tunnel going forward makes me feel a lot better.
Yeah, and it's gonna be interesting too. I hate that we're even talking about this, but with COVID cases across the entire country starting to just spike right back up, it's gonna be interesting to see how many of these bowl games and if the playoff is affected. I really hope that's not the case, but you're seeing a ton of cancellations in the NBA. You're starting to see cancellations in the NBA with my Bulls. You're starting to see it in the NHL. And the NFL, it feels like half the entire fucking league is in COVID safety protocols at the moment. And I hope these college kids just get the opportunity to play on a nationally televised game because I mean it's even more so not even just for the large New Year's Six games. I'm talking for the Jackson States, the North Texas, the Miami Ohio's, the Eastern
Yes.
Michigans, just these kids who, I mean, group of five schools and I mean FCS schools too. They they don't get to play at a national level. I mean, this is the highlight of probably their college careers playing at this level. And I'm not a lot of these guys are going to play in the league. So it's just a really cool experience that hope doesn't get ripped away from them.
Absolutely. And is it just a shame that feels like we're right back in the same place we were last year?
Yep. And
It's a damn shame.
it felt for the longest time things like I don't know if it was just coming out of the summer, but it felt like things were slowly but surely getting back to normal. And now it's just I don't want to say we're back where we started because we're not, but it does feel like we're going that way. And I just hope shit doesn't start getting canceled and postponed. And they already took baseball from us with the lockout and the strike, but that happens. That shit happens all the time. I
Mhm.
don't want to see. I don't want to see it. Obviously, not even just for sports reasons. Like let's not get it twisted. That's be selfish to say, but
Mhm.
yeah, let's just hope these bowl games get played. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I agree.
But that is going to wrap up our
Time
show.
out.
Okay.
Time out. Before we end it, I need to know about your Lambeau experience
Oh,
on
fuck.
Sunday.
Yeah, yeah. All right. So I go my cousins, um, my cousin's husband and his dad, they own a trucking company in Wisconsin. Shocker, they haul cheese. Who would have thought? Who would have thought? So their company, they have a box that they expense. I was not in the box since I'm a Bear fan. I was in the bowl, which I honestly preferred. Let's not get it twisted. I want to get the full Lambeau experience. So me and a couple of my cousins who are Bear fans from Chicago, or Chicagoland area at least for some of us, but we're sitting in the bowl and we are just surrounded by nothing but Packer fans, and we have maybe two other Bear fans in our section. I'll tell you, when we went up 3-0, I was dancing on graves. I was dancing on graves. I knew I had to appreciate it while it lasted. I had so we tailgated and we had the case of Miller Lite in the parking lot. So I cut out the one panel of the case of beer with the Packers logo so I could sit on the benches because Lambeau's all benches. So I brought it in, and after they kicked the first field goal, I grabbed the Miller Lite thing. I raised it above my head. I wish there might be video of it somewhere, not from my cousins at least. I grabbed it. I showed everyone in our section in front and behind us. I turned around, trying to wipe my ass with it, and we saw how that finished.
Oh no.
I,
Literally the equivalent of Robert Quinn doing the discount
yep,
double
yep,
check.
yep. And the minute that happened, the minute Robert Quinn did that, the whole stadium booed, and I thought it was hilarious because I mean everyone knew what it was. Bears had no right. Robert Quinn had no right to be out doing that. But I will say this. I will say this about Packer fans. They are probably like out of like I've been to a few different stadiums, not for football, but for baseball and just encountering other fans at sporting events. Packer fans and Brewer fans, both from Wisconsin, have both been the nicest group of fans I've met. Shocker. Yeah, they were genuinely like very nice people. Had this old guy sitting behind us, and he was probably like 70, 75. I think the man had about 10 beers by halftime. I'm not even joking you. He was like 6'5", like 280, and he's just sitting behind us in his hunting gear with his big Packer cheese head on, and he's just housing Miller Lite. Miller Lite after Miller Lite, and he's just telling us how, this is my favorite part. He goes, our reign of terror over you guys is coming to an end with the next few years. None of us like Jordan Love, and all of us hate you even more since you have Justin Fields. So I,
Hmm.
he said for the first time in his life, he is scared of the Bears moving into the future as long as they get rid of Nagy and Pace.
The man might be onto something, especially with Aaron Rodgers being asked, does he love Green Bay? And completely juking over that question. Another discussion for another day, but just saying, he might be onto something.
And the fact that other fans see that, it made my day. And so another part that I found to be pretty funny was my cousins and I and a few other Bears fans in our section. We started the Fire Nagy chant, and all the Packer fans in our section started to boo us because they're like, "No, we need him to stay. We need
Keep
him to
him.
stay. We need him." So that seems to be the general consensus among Packer fans who I talked to throughout the stadium was that they are petrified of Justin Fields moving into the future. And That's the first time in our lives I bet we could say. I mean, no, I think people were afraid of Cutler for a year or two, just like what he could potentially become, and then they saw how lazy he was and how little he cared, and
Mhm.
that was the end of that. And then, hey, at least we saw Mitch make a Pro Bowl for Bear quarterbacks.
And beat the Packers. He did beat the Packers to clinch the
That
NFC
too.
North
That
too. So
that too.
you know,
Andy won the MVP. So
the slime, whatever the goddamn Nickelodeon damn thing was, but we won't talk about that.
no, but yeah, I mean Lambeau, honestly, cool experience. It's crazy. You're just driving back roads, middle bumfuck Wisconsin, and out of nowhere you just see Lambeau pop up. It's literally in the middle of neighborhoods. It blew my mind. I mean, I knew obviously Green Bay is the smallest market of any professional sports team in the US, but it still blew my mind seeing how small Green Bay actually was when you got there. And I mean, I think that's cool because you saw people at their houses having people pay to park in their parking spots in front of their house. They had them paying to park in their driveways, on their lawns. And it felt like a college atmosphere almost, just like how much and how deeply people care about the Packers in Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I feel weird that I'm complimenting Packer fans. It just feels wrong. But genuinely a nice stadium. It blew Soldier Field out of the water. So let's move to Arlington and let's change that.
Yes, I agree.
But all right, now I think that wraps up our show. Unless you have anything else you would like to add.
No, but uh, oh well, probably since may not be a podcast next week, but if there isn't, just want to wish everyone a happy holidays. Want to wish you have a happy holidays, and hopefully by the time that we will record again, it will either be before the college football playoff or afterwards, and I'll be happy and smiling, or I'll have a box of tissues right next to me. So we'll see what happens.
It will definitely be before. Hopefully, we will be recording next week with the announcement that Matt Nagy was fired after losing on Monday Night Football to the Minnesota Vikings. So, on that note, thank you for listening. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe to the show, and we will see you guys next time.